Okay, so we're about to go ahead and call this client, potential client that I talked to yesterday. He's having a problem with his safety scores, and he's trying to figure out how to lower his safety scores. It's starting to affect his ability to get loads from brokers. It's starting to affect his insurance rates and that kind of thing. The FMCSA, I think, has been in a couple of times, or at least once, and we're just going to have a phone call on how to lower your safety scores. I've looked at his SMS report, and I've analyzed it, and I'm just going to go through that, explain to him how the safety scores work, and how to get those scores lower. So let's go ahead and get him on the phone.
Hello.
Hey, Emerus?
Yes, sir. How's it going?
How's it going, man? It's Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. You doing all right today?
Yes, sir. No complaints.
Cool. Did you get those files I sent you?
Let me pull my email up at the time. I didn't get them.
All right.
Yes, sir. I got them.
Okay. So basically what I did is I just analyzed what's called your Safety Management System Report. The FMCSA updates every year. It's basically it tells you it's a safety record. It's your company safety record, and kind of records what's going on as far as safety with your company. Have you ever seen that safety management report?
I have not.
Okay. Are you managing the company, or?
I just started managing the company.
Okay. So, you said that basically when you called me, you said that you guys have your scores are kind of up there, and it's starting to affect your relationship with your brokers and your insurance company and that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that's common, man, that a lot of companies experience. You can get into the business, you can pass your safety audit, and then when you start getting those roadside inspections, it starts affecting your safety scores, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, your brokers are having a problem with you, and your insurance company's ready to raise your rates, and then you have the DOT, FMCSA coming in to do a review. So it looks like you guys had the FMCSA did one compliance review since you've been in business. After the safety audit, it looks like they came in and did a compliance investigation, or?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. So if what I want to do is just kind of go over that safety management report first, and I'll point out some things on that as we're going through it, and then I'll tell you, what different things on there mean, how the roadside inspections affects your safety rate, how the roadside inspections, how they relate to what FMCSA is monitoring and that kind of thing, and kind of give you an idea of how, give you a picture of how the whole thing works. So if you can go ahead and open up that first one, the safety management report, I think is what I called it.
Yes, sir. I got it.
Okay. So basically what that is that's a snapshot of everything that's going on as far as safety with your company. FMCSA updates that every 30 days. So one thing you want to do, that report contains all the information that, from the SAFER system, that it just kind of puts it in a order that's easier for you to read. But basically, it's all the information that your insurance companies can see, or a lot of the information that your insurance company can see, and a lot of information that your brokers can see. And FMCSA, of course, is monitoring that. And they use that to decide, when there's an issue with the company and when it's time to come in and do a compliance investigation. So if you look, the first thing on that report is the company information, the census information. You got the company address, DOT number, phone number, all of that stuff. It shows right now that you guys have 10 vehicles and 9 drivers. Is that correct, or does it need to be updated, or what?
Yeah, it needs to be updated. I caught myself updating it the other day.
Okay. What are you looking at as far as vehicles and drivers right now?
Six and six.
Okay, so you went down. You got fewer drivers and vehicles right now currently.
It's a six. No, we got six drivers and five trucks.
Okay, 6 drivers and 5 trucks. So okay, so you're required to update your report with the FMCSA every 2 years based on your DOT number. It tells you the month and the year you need to update it. But you can update it any time. And a lot of companies, they're showing more drivers. They're showing they have more drivers than what they're showing, and that's affecting their safety scores. Sometimes we'll talk about it in a second, but sometimes when you update your safety record to show the accurate number of drivers you have, if it's more than what you're currently showing, that in itself will lower your safety scores automatically, because the more drivers you have, the more vehicles you have, the lower your safety score. The system is just designed to it favors companies. The larger the fleet, the better it is. That's why companies like some of your bigger companies like your JB Hunts and Walmarts and UPS, it's going to be hard for them to have bad safety scores, because their fleet is so large that they can absorb a lot of roadside inspections, just by the size of their fleet. So, but we'll talk about that in a few. But that report also shows the interventions that your company has. You guys have had your safety audit. You passed that in 11 of 2018, November 7th, 2018. Passed your safety audit, and then it shows that you had a on-site review that started. It looks like it started December of 2019, and it carried over into 2020, and they finished it on, looks like, February of 2020. They finished it. Was a non-rated review, which means they didn't give you a safety rating. But that report also, if you notice on there, it shows out of service rates over towards the right side there. It'll show your vehicle out of service rate and your driver out of service rate. Do you see that? It's kind of at the top of the form, over towards the right side.
I see at the top of the page. I see license and insurance.
Okay. Look below that.
Okay. Unsafe driving, crash, hours of service, vehicle maintenance.
Okay, it's above those. You're looking at the
hour of service rate. Okay, got you.
Okay, you see that? Not hours. It says out of service.
Right.
Okay. So you'll see the out of service rate for vehicle, out of service rate for driver, and out of service rate for hazmat.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what that out of service rate tells you, that tells you the percentage of time that when your vehicles do get a roadside inspection, that tells you the percentage of time that they're placed out of service. An out of service violation is when they say that violation is bad enough where they say you have to park it until it's taken care of, and then it goes down as an out of service violation. So when it comes to vehicle out of service violation, that's usually something to do with maintenance. You got a situation that's so bad that the truck can't leave until it gets fixed, like a really bad tire or something like that. So your company's out of service rate for vehicle currently is 30.8%. So that means that 30.8% of the time when your vehicle goes through an inspection, it's placed out of service for a vehicle violation. And the national average that you'll see out beside that is 20.7. So you guys are a little higher than the national average when it comes to your truck being placed out of service for equipment or for maintenance issues. And then your driver out of service rate, currently right now it shows 36, and the national average for driver out of service is 5.1%. Driver out of service, that's issues with the CDL, issues with the medical card, issues with the log, the log or the ELD. Maybe he's not using the ELD, or the ELD not turned on, or it's behind, hadn't been updated or whatever. So they'll put you out of service, or if they see that you hadn't gotten your 10 hours of rest, they'll put you out of service for that. That's your driver out of service rate, and you guys are at 36 again. National average is 5.1, so that means you got quite a few out of service violations when it comes to drivers. So the only way to get those numbers for your out of service rate, get those numbers down for your out of service rates, is to get more inspections without being placed out of service. When it comes to these out of service rates, it doesn't matter how many inspections you have. It's just comparing the number of inspections that you have had to the number of times you've been placed out of service. So if a truck has 2 inspections during a 24-month period, they have 2 inspections, and of those 2 inspections, they're placed out of service 1 time. That's a 50% out of service rate for the truck. Same thing with a driver. If they have 2 inspections, or let's say 1 inspection, you have 1 inspection, and the driver is placed out of service for his log. That's 100% out of service rate. The only way to get that number down, is to have more inspections without out of service rate. Without out of service violations. So that's just one thing that reflects on your company's safety record. If you look down a little lower, you'll see those 7 areas you started mentioning earlier, and you'll see some gold triangles. Okay, so that's how FMCSA measures companies' safety record, or measures how you're doing in those safety areas. Those 7 areas there that you see across there are called basics. And when you think about your safety scores, FMCSA is monitoring how you do in those 7 basics, or 7 safety areas. We'll just call it safety areas. And you'll see them: unsafe driving, accidents, out of service, maintenance, drug and alcohol, hazardous materials. Those are the areas listed there. So what happens is, as you get roadside inspections, the points that you get from roadside inspections, the points that your company gets, or your driver gets, that your truck gets, is applied to your company in those areas. And just to give you a quick understanding of how that works is, you got these state inspectors in every state at the weigh stations. Those state inspections are being paid by FMCSA through grant money. So FMCSA is buying those Tahoes that they drive. They're buying their uniforms. They're contributing, they're contributing to the cost of the equipment that those guys are using, the cost of the weigh station, and that kind of thing, through grant money. So, in turn, those state enforcement agencies are uploading accident and inspection data to the FMCSA. When that information gets uploaded to the FMCSA, they're applying that information to companies under their DOT number, and in those 7 basics that we just taught, in those 7 safety areas. If they give your driver a speeding ticket, and then they do an inspection and indicate on that inspection, that he was speeding, in addition to giving him the ticket, that's going to affect your company's safe driving. That's the first area there, safe driving. That's going to affect your safe driving basic. If the driver has an ELD issue or a log issue, that's going to affect your hours of service basic. And then, whatever the category is, they're just attributing those points to that area under your company's DOT number. Every inspection, every violation that your driver gets or your truck gets has a severity rate of 1 to 10. And I just call those points a point of 1 to 10 based on what the violation is. And the higher the point or the severity rate, the worse it's going to hurt your safety score in that particular area. So what happens? The FMCSA has set thresholds for each of those areas. And when your points add up in those areas, once you pass the threshold in that area that the FMCSA has set, now you get what's called an alert in that area. And the alert, you can notice there on that report, is indicated by a gold triangle over that particular area. What happens is, every month, the FMCSA in Washington, they send a report to each of its offices in each state, and they send a list of companies with 1 gold triangle or 1 alert, a list of companies with 2 alerts, and a list of companies with 3 alerts. So, if you go on the list of 1 alert, you're going to get a letter from the FMCSA that says that you're showing a high level of noncompliance, or basically you have a lot of bad inspections in this one area. In this area, it could be hours of service or maintenance or whatever. They'll say you don't have to respond to this, but you need to address it. Basically, you need to figure out why you're getting so many bad violations with ELDs. Why are you getting so many bad violations with maintenance or whatever the case is? So they'll send you that letter just to tell you to check on it and try to correct it. You don't have to respond to it. Now, once you get 2 alerts, if you're on that list, you have 2 gold triangles there. Now you go on the list at FMCSA to get a compliance investigation. You're on the list to get a focused compliance investigation. So if you have a gold triangle over hours of service and a gold triangle over maintenance, then FMCSA, when they get around to it, they may not get around this quarter. It depends on the workload in their office and how many investigators they have at the time, how many safety investigators they have. But you're on the list to get a focused compliance investigation. And once you get that, they'll come in and they'll look at those 2 areas where you have that alert or that gold triangle. If it could be, safe driving and maintenance. They'll come in and they'll focus on those 2 areas, and then they'll look at: Are you keeping all the files that you're supposed to be keeping? Are you, updating the thing, running your MVRs every 12 months? Doing the driver certification of violations every 12 months. All the things that a trucking company or a bus company is supposed to be doing. They're going to check those things. And then when they're done, they can give you a safety rating, overall safety rating for your company. It can be satisfactory, conditional, or unsat. Unsat means you got 60 days to clean it up or they'll basically shut your company down. A conditional, you can keep operating, but with a conditional safety rating, your brokers are going to have a problem and your insurance company is going to have a problem with the conditional safety rating. And then if you get a satisfactory safety rating, that means they found a few things, but overall you're doing pretty good. So, and then they can write a fine as well for any whatever your safety rating. Even with a satisfactory safety rating, if they find things bad enough, they can write a fine against your company that you'll have to pay or whatever. So that's with 2 gold triangles. Now the thing with 3 gold triangles, and that's where you guys are currently, is now you're on the list for a comprehensive compliance investigation, and that means that whenever they get time, it might not be this quarter. Might not even be next quarter, depends on how what their workload is. But you're on the list for them to call you and conduct a comprehensive safety investigation. Basically, they'll look at everything. If you got 3 or more gold triangles there, or 3 or more alert, they'll look at everything. They'll come in and look at your driver files, your maintenance files, your insurance documentation, your ELD. They'll review the logs of all your drivers. They can go back 6 months. They'll look at drug testing and make sure that you got that you're compliant with all the drug testing regulations, the ELDs, and all of that. So right now, that's where you guys are. Let's talk about how those scores work. So, like I said, let's look at that report you got. If you go down further after all of that stuff we just talked about, if you go down further, you can see all of the violations that you guys have had on roadside inspections during the last 24 months. So anytime your driver or truck gets a violation on the roadside, it's going to stay on your company's record for at least 24 months. It's going to affect your safety rating. After 12 months, it's going to have less of a effect on your scores, and then after 24 months, it's going to fall off altogether. So that's second part. There is a list of all the violations you guys have had. It shows the violation code. If you move over to the right, it'll show you how many of each violation you've had during the last 24 months. After that, it'll show you how many of those were out of service, where they actually told your truck or driver to go park until it got fixed. Shows how many of those were out of service violations. And then after that, it'll show the total scores, the total points, in other words, that you've gotten for the particular violation. So if you get, let's say you have a bad tire, and that's a 7. That's 7 points, so that has a severity rate of 7. Anytime they put you out of service, if that tire is bad enough where they tell you need to go park the truck until you get it fixed, that's out of service, they add 2 points to any violation that you get, or any points, any violation that you get where you're placed out of service, you'll get 2 extra points for it, and that's also reflected on that report. And then if you'll look down past that section, you'll see the actual inspections that your drivers have gotten over the last 24 months. It tells where the inspection was. It tells all the vehicle information and all of the the driver information and all of that. So you can kind of use that to see where your issues are. So you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So specifically looking at your company's report, again, you guys currently have alerts in unsafe driving, hours of service, and vehicle maintenance. Those 3 areas. You want to try to take care of those because number one, your insurance company is looking at that, and your brokers are looking at it. So you want to try to take care of it as soon as that's your priority right now to take care of. But let's look at those individually. If you look at that unsafe driving, you have a gold triangle or an alert in unsafe driving. Unsafe driving, those are traffic violations. So anytime your driver get a speeding ticket, a lane restriction violation, following too close, talking on the cell phone, talking on the cell phone and speeding more than 15 miles over the speed limit, those are 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. You get 10 points for those 2 violations and a few other ones, but those are the common safe driving violations that you'll get 10 points for. But those are unsafe driving points come from traffic violations. So if you look at yours, you guys had over the last 24 months, you had 1 driver that was cited for following too close. And that's 5 points. You have 7 drivers. You had drivers 7 times got cited for lane restriction. They caught them in the wrong lane. Those are 3 points each. So every time they got cited 7 times, that was 3 points. You got 21 points that's affecting your safety record for 2 years, for just driving in the wrong lane. You have 3 speeding between 6 and 10 miles over the speed limit. That's a 4-point violation. You have 3 of those. You got cited for those. Your drivers got cited for that 3 times. And then speeding 11 to 14 over the speed limit. You guys got cited for that 1 time in the last 24 months, and that was 7 points. Okay, so that's what's affecting your safe driving. That's why you guys have the gold triangle over safe driving, because of those speeding tickets. The FMCSA sets the threshold for unsafe driving for all companies. They set the threshold at 65%. They have a formula that that they put all kinds of data into, and they calculate a percentage, and they set the threshold for unsafe driving at 65%, and that's comparing you to all other companies in the country. That threshold is set at 65%. Any company that goes over 65%, passes that 65% threshold in unsafe driving, gets an alert or a gold triangle. So right now you guys are at 99%. So the threshold is 65%. You guys are at 99% because of those violations I just mentioned. So that's what's giving you your unsafe driving giving you the alert in unsafe driving. And then if you look at your out of service next, you guys have an alert in out of service. Out of service violations are from ELD issues and log issues. 11-hour violations, not taking the 30-minute break after 8 hours of driving. ELD, not having an ELD not plugged in, not having 8 days worth of blank paper logs, not having a operator's manual for the ELD in the cab, that kind of stuff. Anything to do with logs or ELD affects your safety score for hours of service. And if you look at your report for your company, you got a few 1-point violations. One time a driver didn't add the trailer number to his log. One time he didn't have the shipping document number. Those are 1-point violations. But the problem you guys have mainly in hours of service was there was 4 times in the last 24 months that your drivers didn't have an ELD at all, and that's 5 points each. Plus, each of those 4 times that they didn't have an ELD, they were placed out of service, so they added 2 points, 2 additional points to that for each of those instances. So basically, you got 7 points times 4. That's 28 points over the last 24 months just for drivers not having an ELD. Also, twice, your drivers were cited for false logs. And basically, a false log is log showing something that's not accurate. Log says they're here, but they're really here. Log says that they're off duty on this day, but the officer or the inspector sees evidence that they were on duty. That kind of thing. That's called a false log. A false log is worth 7 points, and then they'll put you out of service. They put you guys out of service twice for that, so that was 9 points each for false logs. Then 3 times your driver failed to. They didn't have the previous 7 days. That's 5 points, and they place you out of service 3 times for that. So 5 times 3, 15 points for that. So those out of service and ELD issues is what's causing. That's what gives you the alert over, in hours of service. The threshold that FMCSA sets for all companies for hours of service is 65%, and you guys are at 98% for hours of service. So that's the area that also needs to be addressed for you. And then finally, your third alert, or that third gold triangle that you're showing there on your report, is vehicle maintenance. There's a few common things that companies get violations for in as far as maintenance. That's going to be lights, tires, brakes, oil, air, and grease, and air pressure leaks. Those are the common things you're going to get cited for at the weigh stations for maintenance issues. So you guys, looking at your record, your company has 14 violations related to brakes. Brakes out of adjustment, not holding air, those kind of things. 14 violations. One of them you were placed out of service for. You got a total of 24 points for brake-related issues. You had 4 tire-related violations. Of those 4, 2 of them you were placed out of service for 24 points. So if you look at that, brake-related issues, you had 14, and you had that gave you 24 points. For tire-related issues, you had 4, and you got 24 points for that. So that tells you that tire-related issues carry a pretty heavy weight when it comes to points, safety points. And then you had 4 instances of lighting, where lights didn't work, wasn't working or something like that. A bulb was out. And you got placed out of service once for that, for a total of 20 points. So those are the main issues as far as vehicle maintenance. There were some other things in there. I think I saw a fire extinguisher not being in the truck or not being charged. That's a low point. You got quite a few little 1 point violations, but 1 point violation adds up. They add up. So you want to watch those as well. But the threshold for maintenance, vehicle maintenance, is set by the FMCSA at 80%, and you guys are at 86%. So you're not too far. You're not too far above the threshold on that. You got a gold triangle, but if you did a few things as far as maintenance, if you tighten up on a few things, then you can probably get that maintenance score down below 80%, and that gold triangle will go away over maintenance. So then you'll only be down to 2 alerts. So when you look at that report that I got, like I said, it's important to look at that report because that's what that information on that report, that's what brokers have, and that's what insurance company have, and that's what the FMCSA uses to determine who we're going to come do a compliance investigation on. So you don't want them looking at that information on your company and you don't know what's on there, because if you know what's on there, then you know that, hey, we need to tighten up on certain things, when it comes to the report. But when you look at that report, the way you use it is to decide what your issues are or where your issues are. You want to look for patterns in that report. And you can see there that it shows, like I said, it shows all the information for all of your inspections, who the driver was, and all of that. So, for example,
Yeah, I was looking at it, and a lot of the drivers on here are not even with the company anymore.
they're not even, and see, that's what I figured, because you got a couple things happening in 2019, but the problem is they got those points on there. Now they're gone, but your company is still dealing with those points for 2 years. That's why you got to, you need to put systems in place to prevent that, because drivers will they'll run up the company scores, and especially companies that have these lease drivers. You can these lease drivers get out there, they'll run up your company scores, then they'll leave. See, because once they run up the scores, now the brokers aren't giving you as many loads. So now they can't get loads. Now they're gonna go and work for somebody else, and now your company, your operating authority, your MC number is stuck with those points that they given you, and now they're gone because now they can't get enough work from you. So that's why you kind of have to have, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you kind of have to have what I call expectations and accountability for your drivers. But look for patterns in that report. And I don't know any of these drivers. I'm just telling you what the numbers show. But that report shows driver McNeely, and some of these drivers may be gone. But McNeely, if you look at that report, McNeely had 2 inspections in a row, January and February of this year, where he was cited for speeding and a lane restriction violation. And that's 14 points alone that he provided alone towards your company's safe driving score. And then during that February inspection, he was cited for speeding, lane restriction, following too close, and he was placed out of service for not having an ELD, which was 7 points in itself. So driver McNeely, and again, I don't know him, and I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I'm just saying what the numbers show. It shows that he alone contributed to your safe driving score. Just he alone made a big contribution towards your company's safe driving score. And that information, what it tells you as a company and tells me as a consultant looking at it, is that driver needs a company policy against unsafe driving. He needs to know that the company doesn't tolerate, traffic violations and that kind of thing. And we'll talk more about.
He got what, 14? You said 14, right? If I'm doing the math right with you.
Yes.
4 and 3.
Well, he got, just looking at those 2 inspections of January and February of this year, he got 14 points by himself just during those 2 inspections. And that's just looking at, again, the speeding and the lane restriction violations. But when you add that February inspection, they cited him for speed and lane restriction, following too close, and ELD issues. So he actually got more points, but I was just focusing the pattern that I'm saying. You got to look for pattern. The pattern is you got 2 inspections 2 months in a row where you got a speeding ticket and you got a lane restriction, So that's a pattern that shows that he needs some type of counseling, and he definitely needs to know that there's a company policy against that. And then the same with White. I'm guessing that Mr. White is no longer with the company, because he got, in 2019, he was stopped twice in the same month, and he was cited for false logs twice in the same month. And that was a couple of years ago, and I don't see anything else on there, but that's still affecting the company's safety record. Those 2, getting stopped twice in the same month and getting false log violation. So when you look at that, Mr. White and other drivers, who have that issue, they need refresher training for hours of service. They need a company.
Company no more.
Okay, but those types of drivers need refresher training. They need a company policy and that kind of thing. So, like I said, when you look at this report, you want to run. FMCSA updates it every 30 days. You want to look at it, see where the issues are. You need to know what your brokers are looking at and what your insurance company is looking at, because they're looking at a liability. They're looking at, especially insurance companies, anything that shows them that your company is more of a liability, they're going to use that to charge you more. So the pattern if you see one driver repeating the same violation, or you see one driver committing different violations, that tells you that that driver needs counseling. He needs a company policy that he needs to sign showing that he understands what the company policy is against these things, and he needs refresher training. Um, Nowadays, companies hire drivers all over the country. You got companies, just the nature of the business now. You got some companies hiring drivers that they never even meet face to face. So it's hard to have safety meetings these days with drivers. But to take care of that, what I'm doing and have done is put together virtual safety meetings where my clients they'll have a virtual safety meeting where I'm talking about different topics, reminding the drivers of different things through video, and that way the driver don't have to come to the office or whatever, but they can just watch it on their video on their phone or whatever whatever device they want to use. They can just watch it while they're shut down at the hotel or whatever. And that way they're getting that safety information, on a regular basis as a virtual safety meeting. But you want to communicate to the drivers that the company cares, because if the company doesn't care, and a driver knows very quickly if a company cares about the violations that they're getting, but if the company don't care, they're not going to care. So that's just one thing. You need to follow up with the driver, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But let's talk about. I'm sorry.
I said, can I ask a question?
Sure. Go ahead.
So on January the 16th, it was a Darton.
Okay.
Did he get any violations?
On January 16th, hold on one second. Let me pull that back up. Okay, you said January the 16th?
Yes, sir.
Of this month? I'm sorry, of this year?
Of 2020.
Okay. On January 16th, he was stopped in Mississippi, and that was a no violation inspection. He didn't get any violations. The driver nor the truck got violations on that during that inspection, and that's good. That helps your safety score. Any violations you get where there's no, any inspection you get where there's no violation, that helps your safety score. And but the thing to keep in mind is after 24 months, the bad inspections fall off, but the good inspections also fall off. So every month, that whole formula is being recalculated. So you're losing, you want to lose a lot more. You want to hope that a lot more bad inspections fall off than good inspections, but they're both going to fall off every month, over after 24 months. But so to answer your question, no, Mr. Darden did not get any violations on that inspection.
Okay.
Okay.
When I go back and talk to my brother, I want to know how to explain these
right
to him as well.
Got you. So let's talk about how to lower your score. When it comes to lowering your scores, like I said, they fall off every 24 months. Any violation you get on the roadside is going to fall off after 24 months. After 12 months, it's going to have less of an effect because, like I said, the FMCSA has developed a formula. It's kind of like a calculus formula that has a lot of variables built into it. And that formula recalculates, and after 24 months, it has no effect on your company. The violations fall off. But the only quick way, a lot of companies, think, is there a quick way to get your scores down? And there's a couple of quick ways to get your scores down, but they're only in specific situations. One way is, first of all, like I say, after 24 months, they're going to fall off. And by the way, you guys got 18 points falling off in July. And then after that, the next time you guys got points falling off after 24 months is in October of this year. You got 85 points falling off. So just based on those points falling off, ideally in an ideal world, just by those points falling off in a few months, that's going to improve your score. But the key is you can't have drivers getting other points on the other end.
Right,
so
right.
the key is you have to put things in place. and we're gonna talk about that. You have to put things in place to keep drivers from getting points on the other end. But I just want to mention that you guys got 18 points falling off in July and 85 points falling off in October of this year.
So, what about for April? Because I know we had some for April and
yeah. Those 18, if I remember correctly, when I did this last night, those points in April, they're included in that 18 points that's falling off by July.
Oh, okay.
But again, that system, when you look at that SMS report, that report actually runs at least 30 days behind. So anytime you look at that report, it's showing 30 days behind. So if you update your record right now, I think you said you updated the number of drivers and vehicles. That won't show for at least, depending on when you updated it, when the cutoff was, what time of the month it was, that may not show up for another month, a month and a half, because that report runs behind. If you want to look at a more up-to-date report, then you look at your Safer report. Safer is more up-to-date, but the information on Safer is just not laid out as easy to read as this SMS report, but it is more up-to-date information.
Right.
But as I pointed out, as far as quick ways to lower your scores, update your drivers and your trucks. Like I said, you're required to update them every 2 months, every 2 years, but you can update them anytime you want. You get new drivers and additional trucks, additional drivers and additional trucks, you update that, and it's going to improve your safety scores if you update, if the number is high enough. Again, this system is skewed towards larger fleets. The larger the fleet, the better your scores are. So I have companies that I've had clients that, and I always think of one client that had 14. He was showing 14 drivers and 14 trucks when I first started working with the client. And the first thing I noticed, the 14 drivers and 14 trucks, he had 3 triangles, kind of like you guys right now. He had 3 alerts, but he was showing 14 drivers and 14 trucks. But when I talked to him, when I met with him, I found out that he actually had grown very quickly, and he actually had, at that time, I think he had like 35, 38 drivers and trucks, but his DOT report was only showing 14. So when you looked at the violations that he had, the system was applying those violations to 14 drivers when it was actually 38 drivers that had gotten those violations. So that makes his scores really high. So the first thing I did with this client is I went ahead and updated the number of drivers and number of trucks. And when I did that, the next time that report came out, 2 of those gold triangles were gone. Now he only had 1 instead of 3. And that's the difference between the DOT coming in to do a safety investigation or just getting a warning letter saying you need to pay attention to this one particular area. So that's why I tell my clients, you want to update. A lot of people think you don't want the DOT to know how many drivers you got and how many trucks you got. But as long as you're keeping up on the paperwork, the files, the driver files, and the equipment files, then you can tell. It doesn't matter how many. You can let the DOT know exactly what you have, because it's going to help you. The more you have, the more you're showing, the more it's going to help you. So that's the first thing. That's one quick way is to update.
One thing we did do was, because we was told before, like the more vehicles you have,
Mm-hmm.
it will lower your safety scores. So we went on there and we added that's when we added the 10 and 10, or 10 and 9, I think.
Right.
And we thought that was going to help. But in reality, it kind of hurted us a little bit, because the insurance company was like, well, we can't carry you guys because y'all don't have 10 vehicles to put on the
right. And see,
insurance. And I'm like,
yeah. And see, that's I never tell companies to companies they do that. They say, okay, well, let's just go in and just increase the number, even though it's not true. I don't tell companies. You want to be careful about falsifying information. I never tell anybody to falsify information, and definitely don't give the DOT agent any false information. That's criminal. So, but if you do that, some companies have told me they've done that, and it has their insurance company didn't mind, or their insurance company wasn't checking. But in your case, it sounds like the insurance company does check that, and they kind of stay in tune to that as well. So I tell companies to be accurate about, to tell them what's really going on. If you actually have that many trucks or drivers, go ahead and show. Don't be shy about showing it to the DOT. But sometimes if you try to falsify that and say that you got more than you got, now you have problems somewhere else, which is with your insurance company and that kind of thing. So a lot of companies are growing quickly, especially today. They're bringing on a lot of trucks and a lot of drivers quickly. But they're slow about updating the record, and that's my thing is show them what you actually have. If it's going to benefit you, then go ahead and show them what you actually have. But like I say, you just got to make sure you keep the records up and all of that stuff, because now if the DOT comes in and they know that you have, they're going to know exactly how many drivers you actually have. They're going to want to see the records for those drivers and those trucks, So, and we'll talk about some of that in a second also. But updating your record, that's one way. And the third thing I want to talk about as far as lowering your scores is data queues challenges. So when the FMCSA started this safety score thing in 2010, they knew that this system was going to be based on data, roadside inspection data, accident data, and that kind of thing. So what they wanted to do, they said, if we're going to hold these companies accountable based on their safety data, we have to give them a way to contest data that's not accurate or not correct or whatever. So they came up with data queues, the data queue system. And what that is, prior to 2010, before the data queues and CSA safety scores and all that came out, if your driver got a roadside inspection in, out west somewhere, in Arizona, for example, you had to track down, and let's say you didn't agree with something on there, you had to track down the agency that wrote the inspection. You had to call them. They kick you around in that agency till they got you to the person that can help. That's very time consuming or whatever. So FMCSA came up with this system, the data queues. They said, okay, we'll do a database. You get a password, a username, get you an account set up in data queues, and whenever you want to challenge something, then you just go to the data queue system, put in the requested information. The computer will kick it to the agency that wrote the inspection. Every DOT, every state DOT agency has a person or people that their job is to review data queues challenges. They call them a request for data review, a RDR, but just as slang people call it, a data queues challenge. So each state agency has a person or people that does that. So if you disagree with something, you do a data queues challenge on it. It goes. You go into this. You log in with your information. You put in the challenge. This is what I disagree with, and it'll go to the agency that wrote the violation. They'll review it, and if you show them that they shouldn't have cited that, if they made a mistake or whatever, then they'll take those points off. And if they take the violation off, then your points are going to go away for that violation automatically, and that's going to help lower your score. Now the thing with that is you have to think about every time one of these inspection agency take points off that they wrote, they're admitting that we did something wrong. So you have to think, how often is a police agency going to say that we did something wrong? That's just not going to happen too often. If it's something obvious, then and it makes them look bad to keep it on there, then they're going to take it off. But unless you can show them clear proof that they were wrong or it shouldn't have been cited, then they're not going to take it off. And sometimes it just comes down to the word of that officer. He's a sworn officer, and that carries some weight, to be a sworn police officer. So if it's not clear, they're just going to say, well, we're going to go with the officer's word on that because he's a sworn officer. But like I said, if it's clear that they were wrong in it and you can show it, and that's the thing too, they're not going to remove anything just based on amnesty. Like some people will say, okay, this driver caused this problem, I fired the driver, can you lower my points or take that? No, they're not going to do that. If you say, yeah, the tire was bad, I got the tire replaced, can you remove the points for it? They're going to say no, because the way they look at it is the truck shouldn't have been out there with a bad tire to start with, so they're not going to remove that. But if it comes down to something again that you can prove, when you submit a data queues challenge, you never want to just submit it with no documentation. There's going to have to be some kind of documentation to back it up, like a statement from the driver. You can take pictures of the situation. If you can show some documentation to back it up and prove they were wrong, then they'll take it off.
Mr. Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Hold on 1 second. My brother's calling.
Okay, no problem.
Mr. Kevin, this is Anthony. He's the owner of the company.
Hey, Anthony, how's it going?
Good, and you?
Good. So, you want me to just continue?
Yes, sir. You can continue.
Okay. So, that was data queues challenges, Emrys. So, like I said, you just want to have some way to back it up. If some type of documentation to show that the inspector was incorrect on that, and they'll remove it. Now, one thing about this data queues, and this really applies to your company because of the safe driving alert that you have. Again, safe driving alerts is based on drivers' traffic violations. And one thing with this data queues system is in 2014, FMCSA passed a policy where if your driver goes to court, if he gets any type of traffic violation, if he goes to court and the court either reduces that charge or they throw it out altogether, then the FMCSA, you come back, you file a data queues challenge, submit the court paperwork where that charge was reduced or thrown out, and the FMCSA is going to take those points. They're going to reduce the points down to 1 point for the violation, or they're going to throw it out altogether. For example, like I said earlier, speeding over 15 miles an hour, speeding over 15 miles over the speed limit, that's a 10-point violation that's going to go against your company if the officer puts it on the inspection report. So he's going to give your driver a ticket for that. Now, if the driver pays that ticket, then of course he just admitted guilt to it. But if the driver takes that ticket and go to court, and the court says, okay, let's say the officer don't show up, or the radar gun wasn't calibrated or whatever, or the court just says, okay, we're going to reduce that to a lesser charge. If the court reduces that ticket to a lesser charge, then those 10 points that the FMCSA, that DOT put on your company's record is going to be reduced to 1 point. And if the court throws that charge out altogether, if they throw it out because the officer didn't show up or whatever, now you can come back and do a data queues challenge, and the DOT is going to they're going to take all the points off for that. The entire 10 points will be removed from your safety record. So that being said, I advise my clients, if your driver's going to get a speeding ticket, a traffic violation, I'm going to tell them go ahead and plan to go to court to fight it. Just don't even plan on paying it. Go to court, because you got some judges out here, they'll help out a driver just because they know the driver makes his living with his CDL, so they'll help you out that way in a lot of cases. So, and then you have these lawyers out here. In some places, you can pay $99 or $150, and a lawyer, or this company, these national companies, you can get a lawyer for a low price, or you can join one of these organizations where these law organizations that'll provide a lawyer for you anywhere in the country. Those lawyers will go to court for your driver. They don't even have to be present, and if the lawyer gets that charge reduced or thrown out, then those points come off of your company's record. So, but like I said, the driver or a lawyer has to go to court. The charge has to get reduced to a lesser charge, which is going to bring your points down to 1. Or if it gets thrown out altogether, it's going to bring the points. It's going to remove all the points from your safety record. So, with having an alert in driver safety in that area for your company, I'll keep that in mind with your drivers. Hey, let's fight this. Just don't pay it, because if you pay it, you've admitted guilt. And these points that you've gotten from my company are going to stay on there for 2 years. So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about the next best course of action. Those are the ways to lower the scores. So the next best course of action, if you can't find a way to lower the scores immediately, the next best course of action is to establish a strong safety program. And you want to show the DOT, you want to show the brokers, and you want to show your insurance company that you've developed, that hey, I know I'm having problems, and this is what I put in place to address it. I don't know if you looked at that information I sent you, but there was a couple of testimonials on there where clients talked about how working with me, I was able to get them a lower insurance rate because what I did is basically I put together an entire program, a safety program for them, and I documented it. And then they were able to show their insurance company, hey, yeah, the data shows we got issues, but guess what? This is what we're doing to address the issues. And what you want to do, in general, what you want to do is you want to establish expectations and accountability for your drivers. That's what I preach as a consultant to all of my clients. You want to establish expectations and accountability for your drivers because these drivers are driving under your operating authority. So I used to tell my clients when years ago, you want to treat your MC number like gold. Don't let drivers wreck your MC number, and then like I said, they go away to work for somebody else. Now you stuck with this bad these bad safety scores for 2 years. So as far as expectations and accountability for your drivers, the first thing you want to do is establish a safety policy for your driver. I have a safety policy that I've developed that I provide to my clients, and you want to give that safety policy. That safety policy tells a driver everything that they should do to comply with DOT regulations. Everything that's required, everything the company is required to do. You give them that policy at the time you hire them, and if they don't have one in place now, you go ahead and give it to all your drivers. Have them sign it and put it on file in their driver file. That lets the driver know right up front that this company cares about their safety scores. They care about what I do out here on the road as far as getting these safety violations. So give them that safety policy, have them sign for it. Then that safety policy, that's the accountability. I'm sorry, that's the expectations. Let them know you care about what they're doing, and they need to care about what they're doing out there. That's the expectations part of it. Then the accountability part, if they know what's expected of them from the company and they continue to go out here and get speeding tickets, lane restriction violations, and things like that, now there has to be some type of accountability. They have to know that, and that policy contains a list of consequences. The first offense we might have counseling. Second offense, written reprimand. Third offense, maybe a few days off where I can't give you a load, and then fourth offense might be termination. They need to know that that's in existence. That these are the things that can happen if I continue to do what I'm doing. Even if you don't enforce it to the max, just having that and letting them know that that's in place, that can change their behavior. So you want to definitely have that in there. Have them sign for the policy. It has that thing in there, and then you want to communicate with them on a regular basis about what they're doing. You want to look at their logs, let them know that somebody's looking at their logs. Let them know that that there are consequences for the things that they do. So the next thing is you want to have, like I said, we mentioned earlier, you want to have regular safety meetings, whether they're like I said, I provide virtual safety meetings for my clients. They can just go on every month, log onto your phone. This is the topic that this former DOT guy who works with us is talking about this month, and we talk about things like what's required, how to be successful on a roadside inspection, what's required with your ELDs, what is personal conveyance, when can you use it, when can you not use it, all of those types of things. Every month we're going to talk about something that's going to help those drivers, and you want to document that the drivers are reviewing, that they're viewing this virtual safety meeting. So all these things that I'm mentioning, you want to have this documented, and you want to show. So when the brokers say, okay, I'm showing this, you can say, okay, look, we know that's the problem. This is what we've done to address it. This is what we put in place to address it. When you're renewing your insurance, I put together a complete package for my clients. Showing them everything that's been put into place to address the problem. So this shows that I'm not as much of a liability as the numbers might look. Yeah, we had some bad situations, but we're on top of it. I've had clients tell me, hey, Kevin, my insurance agent said they never saw a company that's aware of their problems and have put things in place like this, and can show us that they know where their problems are, and show us that they're addressing the problems. And I've had a couple of clients tell me they've gotten a lower rate because of that. So that's going to help you. Having a policy, having virtual safety meetings, that kind of thing, that's going to help you with the DOT. That's going to help you with your brokers, and that's going to help you with your insurance company. But you have to put a policy in place, or put a program in place. When you look at big companies, again, like these big companies, a driver goes to work for them. A lot of times the driver's not even going to touch a truck for at least a week. They're going to be in a classroom getting training on safety issues, on compliance and all of this, getting their files caught up and all that. Well, smaller companies, they can't really afford to have a driver sitting around for a week, taking training and stuff like that. It would help if they did, but the reality is smaller companies can't really afford to do that. But you can't act like Walmart, or JB Hunt. But if you can just at least do the minimum things of giving them a policy, letting them know what's expected, and letting them know there's consequences, and then having regular safety meetings and that kind of thing, that goes a long way towards keeping your score down. So that's I think that's pretty much where we are. You have any questions about any of what we talked about, or?
No, sir. So far, I understand.
Okay, so one thing we offer as far as getting your score down is we can come in and do a complete program. As far as setting up a safety program, first I have to find out where the company is as far as what you have in place already. You want to set up files for everything. That's the first thing you want to do. Make sure your driver files contain the proper documents and all that. And you want to stay on top of that, because when you create those driver files, there's things you have to do every 12 months that a lot of companies are not aware of. But if the DOT came in, they'll cite you for it. Like you have to run that MVR for the driver at the time of hire and every 12 months. You have to do a certification of violations, where the driver, every 12 months, the driver has to list, all the violations they had, all the traffic convictions they have, during the last 12 months, and sign it. And then you have to do a review of driving record. The company has to review the driving record and sign that somebody reviewed the driving record. That has to be done every 12 months. If the DOT comes in, they're going to check for that. And if you haven't done it for a driver, they're going to cite that for each driver you haven't done it for. Medical cards up to date. You have to check the National Registry to make sure that the person that did the physical or did the examination is on the DOT's National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners. Make sure there's an application in there. Make sure the application is DOT compliant. You have to make sure a copy of the driver, the CDL, is in there, in that driver file. Vehicle maintenance files. You got to have a file for every vehicle, and truck and trailer, whether it's a lease driver or a company driver. Got to have a file on them. That file has to be labeled a certain way. Have to have copies of the annual inspections. They have to be up to date. You have to keep, annual inspections are due every 12 months on trucks and trailers, but you have to keep them on file for 14 months. The DOT checks for that when they come in there. You have to have a maintenance schedule, or preventive maintenance schedule. You have to know when the next oil change is due by the date and the mileage. You have to keep that. You have to do a maintenance status report. That's just anything to do with maintenance on the vehicle. You have to put that on a report for each piece of equipment. Change light bulb, had tires changed, had oil change, whatever. You just have to write down. You go through a roadside inspection. They tell you that a hose needs to be replaced. You need to put that on the maintenance status report. They require that. The person who does your annual inspection and the person that works on your brakes, you have to have a certification from them stating that they're certified, they're qualified to do that, that type of work. That has to be in there. Receipts for at least the last 12 months for everything. You want to keep that. The DOT requires all these things, so you want to make sure you have your files up to date first of all. That's what we do, is we make sure that you're in compliance with everything as far as your driver files and your maintenance files. Then we look at your ELD, make sure the ELD is is registered with the FMCSA. Any ELD system you use they have to have self-certified with the FMCSA. There's a list on the FMCSA website. If you're using an ELD or ELD brand or version that's not on that site, then you're automatically in violation. So you make sure every truck is equipped with an ELD. ELDs are required for any truck newer than 2000. If the truck is older than 2000, or if the truck is newer than 2000 or newer, but the engine in the truck is older than 2000, then you don't have to have an ELD for that truck. That truck can use paper logs. But if the truck requires an ELD, you have to make sure that it's equipped with it. Have to make sure the drivers understand the hours of service rules. We provide training and videos for that, that they can understand the hours of service rules and the ELD rules. To get those down, you want to make sure your drug testing is on par with what's required. Any driver you hire, you don't want to put him on the road until you get a negative drug test. I had a company, I always use an example, a company I had in Texas, a client years ago called me. The DOT came in and he had 3 drivers. All 3 drivers had the negative pre-employment drug test and they were out there on the road, but when the DOT investigator looked at, bill of lading and logs and stuff, they saw that the driver was driving before the company got the result in their hand. So 2 of the 3 drivers, again, they had negative pre-employment drug test results for all 3 drivers, but 2 of them, the DOT investigators saw that they were driving before the company got that. They just looked at the date and compared it to the logs, and they find that company $5,500 because 2 of the 3 drivers were driving before the company got that DOT negative drug test. They put them on the road before they got it in their hand. So make sure you get that before you put them on the road. Make sure they're in a random program. I have a random consortium that companies can join, and you just go in the pool with other companies. If I call you and say one of your drivers got to get a random test, you send them. If you don't hear from me for 12 months, then that means you're good, because as long as you're enrolled in the program. My program is $99 a year to be a member of it. Make sure they're in the random. If there's an accident, there's certain requirements for post-accident tests and post-drug tests. I had a company in Jacksonville, Florida, 2 days ago. Driver got into an accident, T-boned an elderly lady and killed her. The company owner called me. He was, of course, excited because, insurance companies already called. It just happened. And insurance companies already calling. He's saying the DOT's coming in and all this. So I had to kind of calm him down a little bit and say that your first thing is we got to send them to get a post-accident drug test and a post-accident alcohol test because there was a fatality involved. There's some cases where it doesn't have to be a fatality, but you still have to get them a post-accident drug test and alcohol test, And then the big thing is this clearinghouse. Clearinghouse, that's basically a database that collects information on all of your drug and alcohol information on all drivers, all CDL drivers. If they fail a drug test, a DOT drug or alcohol test, blow a .04 or greater on an alcohol test or fail a drug test anywhere in the country, it's going to be reported to that clearinghouse. And once they get reported to that clearinghouse for a violation of DOT drug and alcohol policies, nobody can use them until they go and see a substance abuse professional and go through that whole return to duty process. So once they go in there, as a company, you're supposed to run that query on them at the time that you hire them and see if there's anything in there. If it's something in there, then you have to make sure you can't hire until it's taken care of. For you to run that query, you have to have an account in the clearinghouse. Your company does, and the new driver has to have an account because they have to go in and they have to log into their account and give the company electronic consent to get that information. And then you have to run a clearinghouse check every 12 months on all of your drivers. So the DOT's checking for that now. And not only is the DOT checking for that, but one thing that a lot of people didn't expect is they're running those clearinghouse checks at the weigh stations now. I've had 2 drivers already that have been shut down at the weigh station because of something in the clearinghouse. Two of my clients' drivers. Number one, driver in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky in the middle of the night. They shut him down because the clearinghouse was showing that he didn't. They didn't know what it was. It's showing that he's prohibited. Uh, the problem was the company had ran a clearinghouse inquiry on him when they hired him, but he never went in and gave consent for it. He came right out and told the company he had a problem. He had failed a drug test at another company, so they went ahead and sent him through the SAP and all of that, and made sure he got straight with the requirements. But he had never went in and gave them consent in that clearinghouse to get the information. Excuse me. So the clearinghouse flagged him as being not, he's prohibited from driving. So this is 8 months later. He's in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. Go through a weigh station, and they say, "Hey, man, the clearinghouse is showing that you're not that you're prohibited from driving." Nobody knew why. They called me. The inspectors told him just to go park the truck. He parked the truck. They called me. It took about 30 minutes for me to figure out, "Hey, man, you never went in 8 months ago and gave your company consent in that clearinghouse. They filed they ran a query in the clearinghouse. You never logged in and gave them consent. The DOT sent a letter to you stating that you needed to do it. You didn't get the letter or ignored it or whatever. So the clearinghouse made you prohibited, and now they've picked it up at the weigh station." So they told him to shut down. It took me, they called me. It took me about 30 minutes to figure out what was going on. He corrected it. He was good to go. But by now, the officers at the weigh station had gone home for the day. So he's sitting out there in the middle of the night at a little weigh station in Kentucky and didn't want to go nowhere. I told him that he could go because we had fixed the problem. He was scared to go because apparently he had, he had some issues before where he had been locked up before, and he was worried about getting. And I told him, "Man, look, we've cleared it. We've taken care of the problem, and if they stop you again, there's not going to be a problem. It's going to show that the problem's been corrected." So I said, "You don't have to. If you want to sit there all night and wait for them to come back on duty tomorrow, you can. But the problem is taken care of, and you can go." And finally he decided to go ahead and leave. But that's the second. Another one happened in Iowa. Similar situation. The guy had tested positive somewhere and didn't go through the substance abuse process. They picked it up at a weigh station in Iowa last week, and they shut him down right there in Iowa. So the company had to send somebody from Chicago, send another driver to pick him up because he couldn't go nowhere. So this clearinghouse is having a big effect. When they started this, when I was with FMCSA in the early 2000s, and they were talking about we're developing this clearinghouse one day where it's going to track all these drug and alcohol violations. I told them, I was saying, man, that's going to be a game changer for the industry. And it started in 2020, and it's already become a game changer for the industry. So you definitely want to make sure you're on top of the clearinghouse issues. You want to get registered with an account. I don't know if you are or not, but you want to make sure you have an account and make sure you run all drivers. Just like that negative pre-employment drug test, you got to run a pre-employment query through that clearinghouse before you put a driver on the road, and then you have to run them every 12 months. So that's just one of the big things that's affecting companies right now. So, but again, coming in, I would make sure, that's my job, is to make sure just to basically set you up with a complete DOT compliant safety program, documented. That way you can show it to your insurance company. You can show it to the DOT if you have to, and you can show it to your brokers if they have a problem. Lay it out. I tell my clients, use me. I was with FMCSA. I was with the DOT for 21 years. Let them know you're working with me. I got a package on who I am and what I do. I've had insurance companies call me and say, "Kevin, I don't know what you did, but this company, we couldn't even insure this company 2 years ago. We could barely get them insurance, and now they've turned completely around. Their scores are lower, and they want to know if they can put me on their website so companies can, so their clients or their patrons can contact me to help get their scores lower." So, and I say, "Yeah, you can do that." But that's what I do. I just tell you right up front as far as costs. I thought you had 10 drivers. You said you guys got about 6 drivers. I could get you guys completely set up for get all your files set up for all the drivers, get the clearinghouse stuff done, and document that you have a safety program in place, and then I can put together documentation showing the positive things that you're doing that you can show your insurance company and your brokers. Any of these outstanding violations, we can do a data queues challenge. If anybody got any outstanding traffic tickets, we can do data queues challenges on them. If it's something, I don't waste companies' time. I don't tell you that they're going to take something off if I can look at the situation and I know for a fact they're not going to take it off. I don't even try to tell you that they're going to take it off. But if it's something that I know that they can take it off, or if we do it the right way, then we'll do a data queues challenge on it and get that removed. So that's pretty much what I can offer. I think that's the explanation of where your issues are and what you have to do to turn things around. So you just have to, take that information. If you think that you want us to help you with it, like I said, we're available to start anytime you want. And if anything, you feel like you can do it on your own, it'll be hard, based on everything you probably could imagine. It'll be hard to do some of this stuff on your own. But again, you can get me or somebody else to help you with it. It'll definitely help you out on your insurance and with your broker. So, again, any questions? Any issues that you want me to address? Or
So when do we have to pay?
Well, most of my clients either they just go ahead and pay with a credit card. I send them a receipt that they paid, and then I go ahead and get started on requesting documents for them, and just go ahead and get it into place. If I will take some clients, if they say, can we pay up front, pay half up front, then yeah, I'll take a half down payment and then pay the other half when everything is complete. It's up to the client.
Okay. Can we do that? And will we be able to get the acceptance letter from you or whatever, so we can submit that to Carrie?
Submit it to who now?
Carrie, the lady that's trying to get us insurance.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were working to try to get insurance right now. But yeah, I'll put together something to show.
We got like 10 days before we get canceled. So she's trying to, she's the one that got us in contact with you.
Oh, okay. Who does she work for? Okay. Yeah,
She said one of her other clients used you.
Yeah.
And he recommended you and said that you were really good. So she gave us your number because she said that you can help us out.
Sure. Yeah, if you guys want to get set up, we'll do the initial payment. I'll put together information for her. You just have to send me her information, and I'll put together a package for her showing her that you are working with me, and I'll list everything that we're doing to turn things around, and that we'll try to get it done as quickly as possible. I'll put all that in writing for you.
Okay, what? We're gonna do it. I don't have my card on me at this moment. Is there a way I can give you a call back in about 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm around all day, so yeah, anytime. Okay. I'll be around. And
I'll give you a call back and I'll get it taken care of.
Okay, sounds good, man. I appreciate you guys, and we'll be in touch, and we'll get it turned around.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay then. All right, take care then. All right, bye-bye.